can carry any cargo uphill. On the outside, one half of the trunk contains a radiator that rejects heat from the active thermal control system into space using SpaceX's new Pica tiling technology. The other half contains solar cells that are used to charge the spacecraft's batteries during flight.
SpaceX Dragon, Bob and I are go for launch.
And you heard that call out right
Copy,
there.
go for launch. Next up will be the go no go pull at T-minus 45.
Bob and Doug are go for launch, and next
Copy.
up,
We're holding in step 6.5.
you're hearing it live from the nets. This is amazing, very exciting. The spacecraft is designed to accommodate up to 7 crew members with modular seats that can be removed and replaced by additional cargo. The seats are made of carbon fiber and will be custom sized for any crew members flying on board.
Control panel that's centered between the pilot and commander seats consists of 3 touchscreen displays, and that just again allows the crew to operate the vehicle and fly it manually, but also look at all of their procedures, relative position over the Earth, the space station, any alarms, alerts, anything that they could possibly want to do on Dragon is through those touchscreens.
And lastly, our Super Draco launch escape system is a key safety feature of Crew Dragon, giving the crew the ability to safely escape from the time of launch all the way to orbit.
And that launch escape system was put into work a little bit earlier this year, again on that in-flight abort test. As we look to the future beyond this test flight, the first operational SpaceX crewed mission for NASA will be a little bit later this year after Bob and Doug come home. NASA astronauts Mike Hopkins, Victor Glover, and Shannon Walker, and Soichi Noguchi of the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, or JAXA, were chosen to support this mission, being called Crew 1.
Shuttle flight.
You ready? Still pumped?
And
Oh yeah, I think we're ready.
To see on countdown net, ring pressure will come up at -8 minutes 30 seconds, and we'll be able to verify decay rate. No concerns at this time. Everything's reading nominal, but watching that item. No other constraints on Falcon 9 or ground systems.
Stage 2 RB1 bleed is complete.
All right, we just crossed the 55-minute mark away from launch. Sitting right next to Doug Hurley, who's closest to your screen, is NASA astronaut Bob Behnken. He is the Joint Operations Commander for Demo 2, and Behnken previously flew on 2 space shuttle missions, STS-123 and STS-130, and also served a tour as Chief of the Astronaut Office. So here's a little bit more about the man who said testing out a brand new spacecraft is an astronaut's dream.
When you go through the launch day preparations, there's a lot of moments that kind of stand out to you. One is the kind of the celebratory piece of it, which is that you're walking out of the suit up room and getting in the vehicle that's going to take you to the launch pad. When you close the hatch, that's really when Doug and I are in the vehicle, and it's our vehicle, and we're really in control of the mission at that point.
Test pilots, their task proved that man could fly into orbit around the Earth and return live and well to talk about it.
There's always a balance of managing risk as you go forward to execute a test point and figuring out a way to collect the data. We hear a sound. Okay, is that sound an expected sound? Or we see a light, is that light an expected light? What's the source of it? Does it sync up with something else that's going on or not? So trying to dissect all of that in real time in your head is, a lot of things happen like that on launching of a vehicle.
From St. Anne, Missouri, He is an Air Force colonel and flight test engineer. He flew aboard Space Shuttle Endeavour twice. Introducing NASA astronaut Bob Behnken.
My career at NASA has kind of spanned a couple of decades at this point. I arrived with the class of 2000, went through the training program, primarily focused on the Space Shuttle and the International Space Station, learning those systems. Having launched a couple times on vehicles, you know, the second time was definitely different than the first time. You can feel a little bit guilty of, hey, should I study one more thing, or is there one more piece of information I should get? Am I really prepared or not? So that's definitely different between where I was on my first flight and where I'm at right now. It's been really interesting, I think, for both my wife and I to have gone through the process of seeing each other launch in space. I've seen her take that risk and had it be in front of her, and I've done that to her. And there's just something different about watching a rocket launch when there are people on board. You feel a little bit differently about the pit of your stomach, and I can only tell you it's multiplied significantly when it's somebody that you know, and then somebody, of course, that's a family member. It's even multiplied more.
For me personally, as a spouse, watching everything that Bob has put into this over the last 5 years, the dedication that he's shown, the perseverance is pretty special. For both of us, though, the way our minds work, it won't be until sort of the mission is complete that you have really a chance to savor it and celebrate it. This is a huge accomplishment for an Air Force flight test engineer to be part of the demonstration mission of a brand new vehicle. It's going to be amazing.
Without a partner that has that same appreciation, I think it can be challenging for some folks. There's a lot of work and a lot of time that takes away from family that that my spouse appreciates, and I love her for that. Really, my role on the Demo 2 mission is to make sure that we get this vehicle tested and evaluated so that we can move on to more operational missions at the International Space Station. We've got a lot of objectives on board the vehicle that we need to accomplish to really make sure that it's good to go. We'll make sure all those systems are working during the test flight so that the future missions will have them available even if they don't plan to utilize them. Through years of the NASA team, helping to share that experience and teaching them the lessons that we've learned by going through this. Now there's another capability in the U.S. besides NASA to operate something of this magnitude. When is the last time humans launched on a new vehicle? Certainly on the American side, it's been several decades. Now we're in a time when we've got multiple vehicles under development. It's a great time from a space exploration time frame just to see all that happening, and it's because of this nurturing of the environment, being able to pull in a wider group of people who can contribute towards human spaceflight. It's a super cool time. On a deeply personal level, I'm really excited that my son is get a chance to see me launch into space. Being an astronaut has been a little bit of an abstraction thing for him because he's seen me do it in old videos, but he hasn't seen me do it for real. And so I'm excited for him to see this launch. I want to thank the entire Commercial Crew Program team that's worked together to get to this point where we've got vehicles in the launch pad ready to head to the International Space Station.
We're just over 49.5 minutes away from launch of the Falcon 9 carrying Dragon to the space station. Right now, the launch director and the launch team are preparing for a readiness for launch poll. In this poll, the 13 members of the launch team will electronically indicate a go for launch. This is also the go for propellant load. Now, we're going to hear that in a couple of minutes, so while we wait, we are tracking you watching from all over the country. We're seeing large numbers of you logging on or tuning in from coast to coast, as well as around the world. We want to know, is this your first time watching a launch live? If not, how many have you seen before? Tell us using the hashtag #LaunchAmerica from your favorite social media website. As for me, this isn't my first one. I've seen a lot, but everyone is exciting. Now, coming up, we're going to go into a readiness poll, as I mentioned. Currently, right now, on other nets, the SpaceX launch director is checking to verify the Dragon team is ready and that the NASA launch management team is ready. They'll come back at about T-minus 47 minutes with instructions to the SpaceX Falcon 9 team to make their final assessments. Then they log into the procedure. It's a little different than the old days where you would hear a go, 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 you know, position by position, all up and down the row. In this electronic age, everybody just clicks on whether they're go or no go. The launch director will then at T-minus 45 minutes summarize the end of the poll and will then provide instructions for the team. At the same time, we will begin getting ready for the crew access arm retraction, and we'll show you that on one of the screens that we've got up. Now currently we are continuing to monitor the weather. The weather is still red. It is improving. We're looking at one cell between the radar and the pad. We're keeping our fingers crossed that conditions will improve, but we're going to be watching that for about another 15 minutes. So it looks like we're going to be good to begin propellant load once we hear the polls, but we still have to get the get the range green so that we can actually do the launch in just 47 minutes from now. Let's listen to the countdown net for a moment. Right now, coming up on 46 minutes, 10 seconds before launch. Didn't hear any significant chatter coming over countdown 1.
Yes, launch director in the countdown net.
Hello,
To proceed
welcome
with propellant
to
load.
Gamer Fuel.
Launch control.
We are
proceed with
watching
swing and
the
firm.
SpaceX live
Arming crew arm
launch.
movement for
where
T-minus
they're
45
sending
minutes.
2 astronauts for the first time in a long time
Thank you, launch
on
control.
U.S. soil to the ISS.
A reminder
So
in
we've
control
got
room on
2
hold
live
and launch
streams
escape
that we
protocol.
can watch
For
here.
non-urgent no-go conditions,
We've got
LD,
mission
and it will prove
control
aborting
here.
The launch auto sequence and proceed
And
to launch
then
abort.
we have the
For
launch
urgent issues affecting the
with the
safety of the
crew
operation,
here.
operator shall call hold
So
on the
I've
countdown
got
net.
my producer with
Launch
me,
control
not
will abort the
alone.
launch auto sequence
She's
immediately
going to help
and
me
proceed
kind of
into the
keep
launch
an eye
abort auto
on
sequence.
these
Operator shall
two
also advise the launch director whether structural breakup or fires imminent or occurring
live
for
shows, so
Dragon
we can
manual escape
kind of
flight
switch
rules.
back and forth between the
Remainder
ones
on
that are
fire
kind of
alarm
important.
instructions here in fire room 4.
So
If
right
of a
now
fire
we're
alarm,
listening to
key
mission
operators
control.
previously briefed will remain
got a
at
guy
the
there
post
taking
while the alarm is
pictures.
evaluated. In the event that personal safety is threatened, we will evacuate
And
to the
I
south-facing
believe this
emergency
launch
exit, which
is going
leads
to
directly
happen
outside.
here
One final reminder, they'll be arming the launch escape
roughly
system
40
momentarily.
minutes
All
from now.
personnel, please stay in your seats from now.
They did say that there was some
Insertion
weather
of
that
Dragon
they
separation from the second
are
stage.
concerned about. And so we're going to have to
Iraqi
keep an
arm
eye on
retraction
that as
started.
well.
And you've heard
Let's see how the
Mike
astronauts
Taylor,
are
the
doing.
SpaceX launch director, give instructions to the team.
Ooh,
We've
good
also
timing.
just heard the call. The crew access arm retraction is underway. Great
So it
view
looks
from the
like the
camera
arm
inside the White Room.
is extending
As we
away
see
from
the arm
the
moving
shuttle
away from the
now.
Dragon capsule, one of the major events necessary to get down to T0. The next one coming up will be arming of the escape system on the Dragon capsule. Now, right now, the next plan for Falcon 9, T-minus 35 minutes, we will begin loading propellant onto the
35
first
minutes.
and second stages. Now,
Oh,
currently,
loading propellants
Falcon
for the
9's looking
rockets.
good. Dragon's looking good. The range continues to be go for launch in terms of the clearance around the launch pad, both the air and the sea space. Looking at the flight corridor, the ground stations, the NASA tracking and data relay satellites are ready to support. And we just continue to monitor the weather. Our team is getting constant
There we
updates. We're monitoring
I think if
weather
I change
data sensors around the launch site.
I see.
Looking to make
If I
sure
change
that
to
we
my
can get
different
everything
views,
into the green
I have to
position.
transition it
The
for
one
you
that we're
guys.
mostly looking at right now
So that you're
is
not
how
looking
much
at
rain
the
we're
one
going to get
page.
between now and liftoff.
Interesting. That
Whether
is
it's just going to be
live
mild
coverage for
precipitation
you.
that's within the rules for loading propellant, That's what the expectation is, but we're going to continue to watch that. So fingers crossed, but right now coming up at
So if anybody's or whenever you're viewing,
18 seconds and
feel
counting,
free to add
everything but the
some
weathers go, and
messages, and we can have a little chat
right
going
direction.
on as we watch
so we've
this
got a fingers
launch.
crossed here.
So I guess I can have...
At this time, we're going to send it back over to Kennedy
so
Space
what I
Center
can do is...
as the action is picking up
I
on
can,
the launch pad.
I'll show you guys one,
Thanks,
and I can
John
kind of keep an eye
Now
on
that
the
countdown
other one
clock
on my
is
other
continuing
screen, and
to
if I feel
tick,
like I need
and
to
we
switch
are
back between the
42
two.
minutes and 46 seconds away
quickly do
from
that.
launch. Now, as you just saw, the crew arm retracted. That is the last major visual milestone before liftoff. And we should be hearing out on the net soon confirmation that the launch escape system is armed. When that happens, all 8 of the Super Draco throttle valves are opened, which means that those engines can ignite.
For section 7.
Okay. So that means those 8 throttle
check
valves
to
are
see-
opened, and if
let's see
those
if we can
Super
get some
Dracos needed
names
to
here
fire
of
in order for Dragon to escape off of the pad,
astronauts
they
that are
could.
launching.
And so things running just a little bit ahead of schedule right now.
Fuel bleed is complete.
Now, we just saw the crew access arm retract just a minute ago. We saw NASA astronauts Doug Hurley.
In 7.2, our visors are closed, and we're arming the
Ooh,
launch escape system.
SpaceX astronauts Doug Hurley
So we just heard
and
the
Bob
astronauts confirm that they are about to
plan to
launch,
reveal a
or,
name
excuse
for
me,
their Crew
arm the
Dragon
launch escape
spaceship.
system. That
Oh, is that the
happens just
astronauts?
before fueling
Oh, yeah.
begins, which we expect to happen in just a couple of minutes. We saw Bob and Doug suit up a little over 3 hours ago. Then we watched them drive out to Launch Complex 39A. They were assisted by the SpaceX ground team with Crew Dragon ingress. That happened a little before 2 o'clock this afternoon. And then we saw the spacecraft hatch close. And again, just a
Can't
minute
get my
ago, we saw the
phone
crew
loaded here
access
to
arm
find out what
retract.
they wanna
We
name
just
the
heard that the
shuttle.
crew armed the launch escape system. And in just a few minutes, we are going to hear the call that they have started propellant loading.
Launch escape system is verified armed.
So we just heard that verification that the launch escape system is armed.
We're switching to GN2.
Slightly got a view there.
And we are going to send it over to Hawthorne to take us through prop loading. Jesse?
From the parachutes to the launch escape system, SpaceX has designed Crew Dragon and Falcon 9 to be the safest launch vehicle ever flown. And joining us today, we have SpaceX's Nick Picone, who was our mission manager for our in-flight abort mission earlier this year and currently works on the Starlink team. Thanks for joining us, Nick.
Hey, Jesse. I'm here at the Launch and Landing Recovery Center with the recovery team and our Dragon ground operations team monitoring the launch.
Awesome. Can you tell us more about the critical safety features on this new version of Dragon?
Sure. So Dragon 2 was designed with long-term reuse and reliability in mind. So fundamentally, there are multiple layers of redundancy to any of the failure modes that we could conceive of, that NASA could conceive of when we were working to design and test this vehicle over the past few years. But in the event that we encounter an unforeseen failure mode or multiple failures which push us outside of our design space, Dragon also has backup systems and operational controls intended to keep Bob and Doug safe. I'm sure you've heard a lot about it today, but the launch escape system is the primary backup system that we have from the moment that the vehicle is here on pad being fueled all the way up until orbital insertion. At a high level, the launch escape system, in the event of a major Falcon anomaly or emergency, will terminate Falcon thrust, separate Dragon from Falcon, and it'll use Dragon's 8 Super Draco engines to quickly pull the vehicle away from any kind of Falcon anomaly.
And you talked a lot about the launch escape system. How exactly is that activated? Is it autonomous? Is it manually activated?
Definitely. So for this system to work as designed, you have to remember that the vehicle could be flying at hundreds or thousands of miles an hour through the lower atmosphere. So it's really important that it's extremely fast and highly reliable with very low chance of false positives. The launch escape system fundamentally is set to look at a set of pre-programmed criteria which are on board the vehicle. Dragon and Falcon are looking at higher rate telemetry, looking for abnormal vehicle dynamics, loss of communication between critical systems, or manual commanding. Our launch director and chief engineer, who you've heard a lot from today, are capable of sending a manual command to Dragon to initiate a launch escape. And Bob and Doug are also always able to actuate the launch escape handle and initiate a launch escape themselves as well. Now that the system is armed, all of this is currently active on the vehicle.
Wow, it sounds like there's a lot that
so
goes
they've got
into
their
it.
own little
And we did have an in-flight
safety
abort
escape.
test earlier this year to test this out. Can you tell us
in case
what
there's
we
any
learned
problems,
from that test?
they can
Definitely.
rescue the
It was
astronauts.
possibly the most flight-like test of an orbital-class booster in history. It was a fully flight-like test using a full Falcon 9 rocket, which we had to knowingly destroy in order to get this fully integrated system. For folks who didn't get a chance to see it, the vehicle followed an we continued through flight vehicle in under half a second.
About a minute and a half away from propellant load at T-minus 35 minutes.
Propellant
we should
loading.
hear the call out on the nets that propellant load
We need
has
some
started.
gamer fuel
So
in
that's
that
about
ship.
a minute and 13 seconds away.
Not a sponsor. Can't afford to.
Hey, Marie and
Sorry,
Lauren, I am
SpaceX.
getting goosebumps over
Next
here.
time.
It's just an exciting moment. When I was sitting in the vehicle, when we retracted everything, when all the prop was getting loaded up, I was just going through my crew notebook. I was thinking about, what my first step would be if there was a malfunction, because usually everything goes nominally when you fly to space, but you have to think about the things that you have to take care of, the first steps you have to take care of. And on my mission, I was calling out the abort calls, like if we had lost an engine, where would we go next, when the different abort calls around the country and around the world. So I think that's what those guys are probably thinking about now, and just really getting ready for this mission to go off.
Absolutely, and we're just now.
So now that we are 34 minutes and 42 seconds away from since 2011, that's our. Doesn't Draco engines for a total of 8 of them. And as I mentioned, they are biprop engines. They have MMH and NTO as their oxidizer. Now, jettison on a nominal flight. And so they're
These are
pretty
not
dormant, just those throttle valves open unless
electric
they're used, and
powered.
hopefully they never have to be.
come
Yeah,
on.
the other thing that offers you is the ability to
up,
escape from
Elon?
the pad all the way to orbit.
Let's get some Tesla
Because if you
batteries in
jettisoned
these
your escape
rocket
system
ships.
prior
and
to that,
really prove to everyone
so yeah,
the
that's a
capabilities
little Dragon there.
Again,
All right.
new
of
era,
electric
much safer
power.
design.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for walking us through that, Lauren. Again, the launch escape system is armed. That protects Bob and Doug so that if something were to go wrong, they can shoot off of the pad away from the rocket and parachute to safety in the ocean. That is such a crucial safety capability. And so now we want to go over to Hawthorne for an operational update with John.
Thanks, Marie. We are counting down those final minutes.
We got
Everything is
32
still
minutes
looking good
left
on the
until
Falcon 9
launch.
and the Dragon vehicles for an on-time launch, but weather is trending the wrong way right now. We're keeping our ears open in case we hear that the weather is going to be no-go for the rest of the count.
The
right
weather's
now,
getting
we
kind
are
of worse.
counting down at T-minus 32 minutes.
Stage 1 locks and
Falcon 9
RP1
did
flow rates
begin
are nominal.
propellant load at T-minus 35 minutes, right on time. The propellants we use on Falcon 9 are a fuel, which is rocket-grade kerosene, also called RP1, refined petroleum. We use an oxidizer, and that's the super chilled liquid oxygen, or LOX as we call it. Those two propellants come together, but they don't light, so we need an ignition source to complete the fire triangle. For this, Falcon 9 uses a fluid called T-tub. You might see that just before first stage ignition, or maybe later in the second stage ignition. You get a green colored flame as the T-tub comes out into the oxygen, and that ignites the main engines right before the rocket takes off or the second stage engine lights. Now currently in the fueling, RP1 fuel is about 10%.
So we still have our
full on the
other
first stage.
screen going on
That's
for
the bottom
the
2/3 of
mission
the stack
control.
of the vehicle you can see on the left. The first stage is
not
that
much going
long
on
white
over there.
cylinder at the bottom, plus that black cylinder called the
But
interstage.
let's
That's the entire first stage that we're
Keep
loading
an eye
with
on
LOX
our
and RP1
mission
kerosene.
control.
That's the part that comes back to Earth. The second stage just above it, the white cylinder, and then above that will be the Dragon trunk and the capsule. Now currently, the second stage is also loading fuel with RP1. That's about 8% full right now. We are loading liquid oxygen on the first stage. The second stage liquid oxygen load will begin at T-minus 16.5 minutes if the weather cooperates.
So another
LOX loading will
15
then
to 16
continue
minutes
on both
as
the
they
first and second
complete
stage
the
until the
fueling.
last few minutes of the countdown. Helium loading is also underway into pressure vessels on the first
And
second
helium
stage.
loading.
We use that
That's
to
how these fly
pressurize
with
the tanks
helium.
in flight as the propellant is being pulled
Knew
out by
it.
the Merlin turbopumps. Dragon on board the spacecraft. You can see the astronauts are monitoring systems while propellant is loaded into the Falcon 9.
So how come they don't have a
When we
dragon
flew
painted on
helium
it?
load
the
has
first
started.
demo flight last year and then
Could have
the
at
in-flight
least
escape test earlier this
did
year,
something, right?
the sounds inside the Dragon capsule were recorded. So as part of the training, the sounds of the propellant loading were played back to acclimate the crew to what they're experiencing now. I'm listening to some discussion on one of the back nets,
wonder if we
trying
can
to
hear
track
if it's
where
going
we
on.
are with the weather criteria. We're just passing another weather gate right now, trying to see whether or not the conditions are go. In certain situations, when the weather is no-go, you have to wait 30 minutes, and we are now inside of 30 minutes. But if the cloud moves away, if the conditions improve, we may be able to continue the countdown for another 14 minutes and reassess. So we're waiting to see whether or not we can continue the count. Currently we are. The range, they're ready
Still
to
going
support
on.
with no problems in the
So
air
yeah,
and the
they're saying
space
usually
area.
around this time, if
But
they
again,
feel that the weather
that's
is
the one that's looking bad.
a concern,
and
they
we're
would
gonna
stop
continue to listen.
now.
And as a reminder,
It
today we have an
seems-
instantaneous launch time. So at this point, if we hear a hold for any reason, we're going to have to stand down and target our backup launch opportunity on May 30th.
Okay, so May 30th, if they don't launch today, they will try again on the 30th.
For Demo 2, Bob and Doug's flight to station will take about 19 hours, and their journey is fairly similar to the trip
19
our cargo
hours
Dragon
until they
makes
get to
back and forth to
ISS.
the International Space Station, with two noticeable differences: docking and splashdown.
As we await T-minus 0 in just a little over 28 minutes from now, ground operations teams just doing those final series of system checks, making sure both Dragon and Falcon 9 are ready for liftoff, and really keeping an eye on that weather. You're just continuing to get live views of the teams. You've got Falcon 9 and Dragon on your left, and then Bob and Doug on the right as they prepare at the Cape for liftoff.
Once we hit T0 and a successful launch occurs, we will watch Falcon 9 and Dragon make their
there's
ascent until Falcon 9
the
and first and second
simulation
stages
of
separate and send Dragon on
The
its way to the space
launch
station.
and how it
And once it
chases
gets on
up to
orbit,
the
mission operators
ISS.
will prepare Dragon for on-orbit operations, where Dragon will execute a series of burns that are going to gradually raise its orbit to align more closely with the International Space Station. And you're seeing some of that track in the animation on your screen right
That
now.
makes sense.
After
It just
doing
shows the
next
ISO
burn,
stopping.
Dragon,
I don't think that's a hope.
sounds like we're going to get a weather update real quick for the crew.
Here's
Go
the
ahead,
weather.
Spacer.
Yeah, we're currently just evaluating a constraint on the field mill rule, which looks at lightning energy dissipation. We expect to have an update at about T-minus 20, and more information there on whether we would be able to continue into the prop load or scrub
Alright,
at that time.
so it seems that in 4 minutes they will know if the
Okay, Jay, thanks for the update. We appreciate it.
sort of like
So I'll
electrical
give you some more
interference with
words
the
in about
fuel.
6 minutes.
They don't want to have like lightning
Okay,
strike it
so
or
it sounds
something. I
like
guess.
we're going to
Dragon
find
cap.
out in about 6 minutes if we're going to have enough time. And John, I was referring to a couple of those weather situations where we have to have a certain amount of time. In this case, with the field mills, about 15 minutes. So they have until about 16 minutes and 30 seconds to really make sure that we're going to have enough time for that to dissipate. So we're going to be listening for that weather update in just a couple of minutes, but it is going to be a pretty interesting trip uphill for them once they actually get on orbit.
And a very exciting countdown with 6 minutes to figure out if we are launching today. But targeting back to what we were talking about, Next, Dragon will make its approach and actually dock with the space station. This is a very different process from what we've seen with Dragon cargo deliveries in the past, which used a process called berthing. Now, berthing requires a spacecraft to approach the station and then stop so a crew member can maneuver the station's robotic arm to capture the spacecraft. Docking on this version of Dragon can be done autonomously.
Stage 2 cryo-helium load started.
Autonomously with no crew aboard the station. It's typically a faster process, both when arriving and leaving, but it does still require pinpoint accuracy to approach safely.
Once captured, a spacecraft then gets attached to a common berthing mechanism. It's the same type of port that we use to connect each of the modules together on board station. It's a little bit slower.
It's a very
process
common
than docking,
Dragon
but the
berthing
hatches are
method that they're
significantly
using.
larger than docking ports, which makes them perfect for bringing up large cargo items.
And Dragon will spend up to 120 days docked before preparing to return home.
120
Following
days.
successful completion of Dragon's test objectives and cargo loading operations, the crew will close out the cabin, perform final system checks, and configure the vehicle for undocking. Once the automated undocking sequence is complete, Dragon will complete 2 departure burns using its Draco engines, pushing it away from the space station.
And then after Dragon departs the station, it's ready for its trip home. And that'll have deorbit entry and landing and a number of other operations. If you're looking at this animation, it might look like we're playing the one we played originally in reverse, because that's kind of how it goes, but just a little bit quicker. All of the operations following the final departure maneuver will include things like trunk separation, closing that nose cone again, executing a deorbit burn, and once they're inside the atmosphere, deploying drogue and then main parachutes, and then finally splashing down off the Florida coast, at which teams will move in, get Bob and Doug up out of the water, and get them out of the capsule once they're on the boat. So we have 4 minutes now until we get that next expected weather update.
So
Let's go down now
4
to the
minutes
team at
until we have our next update on whether this
Dan,
launch
if you're
will
just joining
continue.
us, we are now T-minus 23 minutes and 48 seconds from the first launch of astronauts to the International Space Station from U.S. soil in 9 years. We're going to find out in less than 4 minutes if the weather looks good for that. And this will mark the beginning of a new era where more people will be able to fly to space than ever before. In fact, we took a poll a little bit earlier to ask you if you had the opportunity to fly to space, would you go? And
yes.
86% of those of you watching
We'll
answered that
87%. Add my percentage to there, please. Oh, and Not Alone wants to be a part of that too, so make it 88.
Or a NASA astronaut to fly in space. You can be a regular civil, just a regular person going up to space on a SpaceX type rocket. So I think that's why the numbers are so high.
Yeah, and we are really thrilled to see all the folks watching along online. I know we certainly hope that that this is a go, but we're going to hear a little bit of a weather update in less than 3 minutes now. And Leland, I know they're waiting for a weather update, and they've come, almost all the way down the count. What do you think Bob and Doug are thinking about right now?
We on SES 129, we were having some weather problems, and I think we were getting close to the countdown, and then it seemed like the sky just cleared up right above our heads. We saw it, and we knew where we were going. And we always know that you can have any types of delays, fuel prop delays, all kinds of things that can happen, but we've trained over and over and over again for these types of scenarios. And so, we want to be safe. We want to be safe for our families, and we'll do this another day if it doesn't work.
Just hold my hand.
I love that John I always says weather. It's that thing that everybody talks about, but no one can do anything about it.
I know.
And it is this interesting thing of just, succumbing to Mother Earth. She's going to tell us if
we have a million people watching.
Right.
Not us, of course.
Well, if it happens, look
but
at
at
this
least
way.
this
Bob and Doug
live
got
stream
one
here,
really
we have
great
a million.
rehearsal in, right?
It's always best to practice and practice and practice, yes.
So again, we're less than 2 minutes now from that weather update that is going to go directly to Bob and Doug, and we will quiet down so we can listen in for that, because I know we can't wait to find out what that is, and those of you watching that have been following along, we are eagerly awaiting to hear whether the weather is going to be a showstopper today.
All right, so we're going to find out soon here. We're about a minute away to see if
Clouds
they...
can seem really deceiving at times, right? You see the blue skies peeking through and you think everything's fine, but you just don't know. That's why we have those launch weather officers.
Absolutely. And I know, we've talked about it before, but it's not just the weather in Florida that they're looking at. They've got to look at weather downrange. If they were to have an abort in flight and they needed to come down somewhere in the ocean, they need to consider what the weather's like out there,
So,
because
40 seconds
recovery
to go?
teams have to go out and get them in a situation like that. So there's so many variables, and that's why not just with this flight, but with every human space flight we've had in the past, there's always a very good chance of a scrub because you do have so much criteria that you have to meet. And we're going to listen in now. We're just seconds away from a weather update.
Stage 2, RP1 load complete.
Is that the liquid oxygen or fuel that they're using?
That is liquid oxygen you see venting off the rocket. That's completely
Got
normal and expected.
It's all
Standing
normal.
by for a weather update.
Steam from the steamed hams we'll be having.
10 minutes.
Steamed
I don't think we're going to
clams.
get there with any of the rules today.
I'm gonna give you
Simpsons
10
joke
minutes.
if you...
I mean, another 10 minutes past T0.
Oh,
16:45 local. I think we'll probably be clear on all the rules, but not quite going to make it for this.
Okay. We're going to check back in with you in about 2 minutes, and then I'll call it up at about T-minus 17 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, there's some of them are starting to count down, but we still have one above 2,000. So if that gets below,
Lost audio here on their side.
And that didn't sound great right there. That was the weather net going out, but we're still standing by for a final decision.
So it looks like they want to give it a couple more minutes here, but it's not looking too good. Let's transition to this other area because we seem to not have any audio going on.
And we're going to continue to listen in for an update, but in the meantime, we're going to go over to John Innsbrucker at SpaceX headquarters in California. John?
And Dragon SpaceX on weather. We're still not
T-minus
looking,
18
good
minutes
currently.
and counting.
LD is
We are still
having
red
some
on weather.
discussions. Expect an update from LD.
We're waiting in about
in a
another
few
minute
minutes.
for one final check with weather. We're going to check at
Okay,
T-minus
Dragon,
17
copy.
minutes possibly. We don't really expect that things will have improved. The weather officer was not optimistic that the weather would clear up that rapidly. We did hear the launch director, Mike Taylor, joke that, if we could move 10 more minutes past the T0, weather conditions may improve, but Mike was not able to do that. We have an instantaneous window today. So at 17 minutes, we want to make that call because...
That's because then it kind of messes up the getting into the ISS, so
launch control.
not going to launch.
And we got the feedback when the Dragon team informed Bob and Doug.
Oh,
they said we gave it a good try, but they understand, and we are here to try another day. So right now we did officially hold the clock. It looks like at T-minus 16 minutes, 54 seconds. The launch automatic sequence that controls the Falcon 9, the loading of propellants, the cycling of valves, that is also stopped. We now proceed into what is a normal scrub sequence for us. We practice this every launch. So now we move into safely taking the propellants, the pressurization gases back off the first and second stages. As things get into a safe configuration, then we will disarm the escape system on Dragon, and we'll bring the crew access arm back around the spacecraft. So right now, we got down to just inside 17 minutes. The hardware was working very well on both Dragon and spacecraft. We had the fuel loading going on. We had liquid oxygen loading going on, everything but second stage. and the weather just needed a little bit more time to clear the conditions. We didn't have that time because we had an instantaneous window, and so with that, SpaceX launch director had to call upon the input from weather,
Dragon, copies
had to
all,
call
about 30
a
minutes.
scrub
Thank
for
you,
the
Mike.
day per the safety rules that we have for this flight. So right now the team is undergoing the
So now they're gonna
post-scrub operations on both
unfueling
Dragon
now of the
as well as Falcon
of
9,
the
working
rockets.
with the range. No issues being reported right now as we start to go through that sequence. Everything looks good. And Dan, we had a good webcast going here until the very end. So you know, we'll look at it as now we've had another great dry rehearsal. Last Saturday we did a dry one, I should say, and today we've done a wet dress rehearsal. But sorry, we just couldn't get there, Dan.
Yeah, thanks, John I. And obviously we can't control the weather. We came right down to the wire there, hoping we could
Where's
just squeeze in between those
Storm
cloud systems
when
to
you
get a
need
launch
her?
today, but
Where's she?
it wasn't to be. But it doesn't mean we're done. We're going to have another attempt coming up in just 3 days. So we're going to be doing this all
3
over
days.
again, essentially on Saturday,
So,
on the 30th.
yeah,
And
I
that launch
believe
attempt is
if
going to be
everything works
coming
out with
at
the timing for me, we can do
3:22
another
Eastern
live
time.
stream
So a
this
little bit earlier
Saturday.
in the day. It's going to look largely the same to everything that we saw today, with the crew waking up, going through suit up, making their way to the pad. So we're going to feel a lot of deja vu, I think, on Saturday.
Yep. But still exciting. Safety is always first, so if weather was not there for us today, hopefully Saturday it will be there for us and we will have a safe launch on Saturday.
Yeah, the initial weather report still had us at about, I think, a 40% possibility of violation. So weather a little bit better, but we're still going to be kind of rolling the dice. It is Florida in the spring and summer, so storms are always a possibility. One of the good things, though, the vehicle appeared to be in great health throughout the day, both Dragon and Falcon 9, so we didn't have to scrub for any technical issue. We're going to continue and follow along with Bob and Doug until they're out of that capsule, as again, they had started loading fuel onto the Falcon 9 rocket, so they'll have to wait until all that fuel comes off. They'll disarm the launch escape system, which still stays armed because they're still sitting on a partially loaded rocket, and then once they're able to disarm that launch escape system, the crew arm will swing back out. They'll make their way once again back the way they came, and then it'll be back to crew quarters for Bob and Doug for a few more days.
So I think we could probably end the stream here today. There's not much to kind of view from this point on. They're just going to
If you're just now
unfuel,
tuning in, wondering why we're not
depressurize.
still counting down, we did have
But we
a
will
launch
follow up
scrub
again
today. We were just a little
on
under
the
15
30th
minutes.
Fuel flow rates are
for their
nominal
launch on
for offload.
Saturday.
Expecting about a 40-minute offload time.
So that call out, the LOX, the liquid oxygen fuel pumping out of the first stage of the Falcon 9, everything looking good with that. Expecting about 40 minutes for all that fuel to come off. So again, once that fuel comes off, Bob and Doug will be able to disarm the launch escape system, and that crew access arm will swing back out. They'll be able to make their way back down and then over to crew quarters.
Lower the volume here.
Unfortunate scrub today because of weather. That was the one thing we were tracking.
Oh, we do have a giveaway contest here. It's a drawing contest, and you can find that on our website at gamerfuel.org. So it's a game, and it will be a game giveaway. So get your artistry skills prepared for our game giveaway. But if you're looking for more information on that, again, visit our website at gamerfuel.org. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for watching. And remember to stay safe and game on.